Hey, small group leaders and coaches. I've got this week's prompt for you. And this week, our sermon comes out of Matthew chapter 11, in which Jesus doesn't seem to meet anybody's expectations. He's revealing the Father to the world, and that's an apocalypse. It's a revelation of who God is, and it doesn't seem to meet up to anyone's expectations. So, here's an icebreaker question for you. Let's start with the lighthearted one and then move to a little bit more serious icebreaker. A lighthearted icebreaker would be about a sibling, a parent, or a spouse. When is a time, humorous if you've got a funny one, when a family member did not meet your expectations? Okay, a funny moment, something that you can laugh about now, when a family member did not meet your expectations. And then if you want a slightly more serious and spiritual icebreaker, when is a time that God was not what you expected or did not do what you expected? So family member and then something about God, what he did or who he is that didn't meet your expectations. Now here's some digging deeper questions on Matthew chapter 11. In this chapter, we see John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, being uncertain about who he is. Then we see the generation mistaking and misunderstanding who both John and Jesus are and rejecting them both. And then we see cities who are rejecting Jesus' miracles. And then finally Jesus turns towards the people that he calls the infants, or these babies, and he offers to them, those who are of this humble and burdened position and place in life, to come to him and find rest for their whole beings. So we want to try to think about this in terms of the world we live in. Question number one: who do you think the people are today that Jesus would consider to be the infants? Who are the weary and the burdened? What are some of the groups? What are some of the categories? What are some of the life experiences that Jesus might consider to be the weary and the burdened, the marginalized, the ignored? Who are the sick today? Who are the people that are somehow missed or mistaken or misunderstood today? Let's think about that a little bit. Second question: what does it mean for Jesus to say that a whole generation or whole cities might reject him? And then to still turn to the individual and say, but you, come to me. How does this play into the current cultural conversations about systemic sin? What do you think that, based on this perspective, Matthew 11, Jesus might say about the fact that there can be system-wide sin, system-wide failure, cultural failure, city-wide failure, generational failure, and yet still a loving call to individuals to come and to be transformed? How might we talk about that now? And more specifically and personally, is this a new idea to you? Has this been offensive to you, to think that there could be systemic sin? Has this been hard for you to accept? Has this been obvious to you all your life? Is this something you've always seen and always known? What has your experience with system or generational or cultural sin versus individual responsibility been? How's that changing right now? How has the conversation changed for you personally in the recent months? How do you now think about personal responsibility of your own life versus your responsibility as part of your generation and part of your city? Lots of room for application, lots of room for discussion there. So again, a recap. Icebreakers would be about family members and times that God might not have been what you expected or did what you expected. Digging deeper is to think about who are the overlooked or marginalized in our current world that Jesus might be inviting to feasts, inviting to parties. And then finally, to think about generational or systemic sin versus personal responsibility. What are you learning from this chapter? How are you seeing it? How will you apply it? What might Jesus be calling for you and I to do? Hope this helps your discussion and aids you. As always, I love you all and I'm thankful for you. Please reach out to me if I can be of some help. I'll be praying for you. God bless.